Hey everybody, so this is going to be a quick demonstration on metal tooling. You can do metal tooling for all sorts of very cool, minorly 3D effects in 2D artworks. Our particular class is going to be doing sugar skulls, but this works for pretty much any drawing that you want to do. So first things first, what you're going to need. You're going to need a magazine or a soft surface of some kind, a little foam block or something like that. It needs to have a little give in it so that whenever you're denting the metal, it can actually dent inward. The table does not dent inward, so therefore we cannot just go on bare table. As I said, a magazine works just fine. Sometimes an open book, an open sketchbook. Anything that's soft on top will generally work just fine. If you can dent it by drawing on it with a pencil, there's like a little dent there, then it'll probably work. You need the metal that you're using for tooling. There are many different types of metal that you can use. This one in particular, and the one that we tend to have in classes most, is an aluminum. This one is a little bit thicker than aluminum foil, so it's not going to have the same kind of crunch and wobbly and wibbly and wimpiness that aluminum foil does. But you can also get like brass sheets and actual silver sheets and such. Aluminum works for us because it's very soft, and therefore we can tool with very simple to use materials. If you have a harder metal, then you can tool using things like hammers and little anvils and things like that. So it's not impossible to do with other metals, but for our particular purposes, a thinner metal that is a bit softer works a bit easier, especially on smaller hands like mine. You will also need a piece of very thin paper, either tracing paper or newsprint paper like this. It's very thin, and therefore you can use it to trace right on top of your tooling, and it just makes your life really easy. You will also need some materials. In our case, we're using these as our tooling materials. Other materials that you can use for tooling would be things like a mechanical pencil with all the lead taken out, a ballpoint pen that is a dead ballpoint pen, a popsicle stick that is just rounded and soft, any like a wooden tongue depressor and things like that. All of those work. In our case, we're going to be using a pen that is not clicked out, so you can see that the end isn't out right now, and a dull pencil. Both of those work for our purposes just fine. So where you start is you have a design, some kind of rough design. You can have your rough draft, if you will. I'm going to be using this one today, right here. This one is only half designed, but that's just fine. I'm just getting a demo here, so it's fine. So I want to make sure that my metal and my rough draft paper are roughly the same size. That way, whenever I'm designing on my rough draft paper, I know that I'm making sure to fill the space and everything. In this case, I've drawn my skull large enough to fit. To make sure that it doesn't move around, I am going to use a little bit of tape. And the temptation is to put tape on both sides, on the top and the bottom. You'll see that I just put it right on the edge and flipped it over so I can have the little back on there. And a lot of kids want to put it on both sides, and that way it won't move or anything. It will also become incredibly difficult to pull off without bending this metal at the same time. So just have the one piece of tape, just one. All right, so I have it on top of my magazine. You can see my magazine right there. I've got this right here. And what you would need to remember is that anything that you push down is going to be going up on the opposite side. So whenever I push this in, all of my outlines are going to pop upwards on the other side of my piece of metal. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to use fairly firm pressure. I can always make it deeper later, but it's always good to start with a little bit more pressure than you think you need. You'll also notice that I'm holding my hand down on the rest of my paper while I'm working, and that will help keep it from moving around on me. I don't really want it to shift, because if this is wiggling all over the place left and right and all of that, then it's going to misalign and it's going to look weird. So you can see I've just come in and I've traced out the edge of my skull here. And I'm not going to do all of this on camera or anything like that. That would take a million years, and I don't want to take up a million years of your time. So we're just going to trace out, again, with fairly firm pressure. If you have a hard time figuring out what you've already traced versus what you haven't, then using a pen, even one that's clicked out, will generally work pretty well. So I can still come and do this if I really want and all of that. I just don't like using the pen clicked out because sometimes it'll tear through my paper and that gets really annoying fast. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to do these teeth, and then right after that, I'm going to get through one more little eyeball. And once I've done that, I should be able to pull this off and show you kind of what it should look like. All right, so I've just gone around some of my basic features. Whenever I lift it up, you can see that they are dented in to my metal. It is then going to be a choice that I have to make if this is going to be the front or the back of my metal. Since I like to think of lines and line work as going inwards, this is going to be my front, which means that I need to start thinking about what parts need to come forward and which parts need to come back. So I'm going to take this off here for, yeah, I'm going to take this off. Come off, little piece of paper. All right, so normally I would have finished doing all of that, but again, demo, it's fine. So say, for example, now that I'm going to take a look at this and I want my eyes to go inward. If I want these eyes to go inward, I'm going to have to continue to tool this out by pressing down on this front side using one of my tools. I would normally use a popsicle stick for this because I like the way that it's much smoother. So I'm probably actually not going to do that right now. But I also want my cheekbones to come up. So if I want this to go down, very easy, just push it down from the front. But if I want this to come up, I still have to push down. I just have to push down on the back. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to use a pencil and I'm going to start pressing down on this cheekbone using these little circular motions. Now, again, I would normally use a tongue depressor or like a popsicle stick for this because it will end up flatter and I won't have so many lines in it. But I happen to not have one on hand right now. So if I push this down, then whenever I flip it over, it sticks up on this side. And you can see I have all those little lines. So if I did the same thing on this side with my pencil and push this down, I can get about 3 levels of elevation in this metal tooling. I can get the areas that I push down from center, the areas that are flush with center, and the areas that are up high. So once you get that all carved out, you basically have a finished artwork. So here's one that is completely done. It has been added to, a little color and everything. Some parts of it pop up like these horns. They are popping forward. Some parts pop inward like these gaps between the teeth. Those are going down, or like these little gaps in here or in the nose. So you'll see that it's very wobbly. You can see it a little bit better maybe with the from the back where there's not as much distracting color. But you can see how all of these pop in and out. And there's very little real flat space left. But that's what it looks like.